And welcome to day 11 of Night in the Woods. This is one day that we get to not deal with the whole ghost thing and instead have a separate day for, fleshing out the relationship between May and Gregory, and as well as Angus, which, is definitely cool. Although it is certainly a sad and bittersweet sort of thing. It's kind of funny how overall I try to... I do prefer the sort of May Gregory aspect, even though May is kind of toxic to Greg, not like in a bad way, but she's sort of kind of preventing him from moving on. And yeah, there I get to show that yes, I've unlocked all the songs. But I don't know. Yeah, overall, May is definitely a terrible friend to all of her friends. I am not going to deny that, but I don't know. She just seems to gel a lot better with Angus, or not Angus, but Greg more than B. Yes. The implications that May's problems are maternal. Admittedly, when I first started playing this game, I thought the reason why she left college was because of, sexual assault or something like that. It kind of had that vibe to it, but obviously not, which is a good thing. Although the game does seem to bring up that comment, or that sort of theme with B, which is also kind of sad. It's unfortunately the world we live in. We need to be better. What an interesting set of names that May's mother has picked out for her potential granddaughter. As we saw in the Lost Constellation DLC preview minigame kind of thing, May, at least when she was 8, saw herself as being relatively child-free. Obviously it's been 12 years, but I'm not sure exactly what's changed about that, if anything. So much ghost stuff, indeed. But yeah, on the bright side, since I'm not, actively thinking about doing all of the voice acting and stuff, I did manage to, I want to say, view all of the special side stuff a lot better in this one. I'm sure I missed something or another. For a game as small as this is, it does seem to be extremely big on the details. And here at this point I opened up the option screen, which, yeah, the option screen is actually more flavor text about, the world that May lives in. It's her kind of pseudo prescription from her doctor, Dr. Hank, who is a very, very overworked general practitioner of Possum Springs, because, yeah, he's got to fill the duties of dentistry, mental fitness, or, mental health, and, all other sort of things. So, yeah, definitely poor Dr. Hank, even though we never see the guy. It does seem like he is in way over his head. And yes, we always listen to Selmer's poetry because, it's stuff that you should do because, Selmer's is cool. And her poetry seems to help her out. And yeah, it would be nice to see if Selmer's gets out of her shell a little bit more, but at the same time, I mean, she's still getting over a divorce and, going through rehab and stuff like that, so you shouldn't force people into relationships. Well, I was about to say relationships don't define us, but relationships do define us as people. It's just we shouldn't define ourselves only by romantic relationships, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You should definitely have people that you talk to, friends certainly. And yes, you should always go and check out the stars, because Mr. Chapsikov is also cool. This one, I think, moves relatively quickly. You would think by now I'd memorize where the stars are, but it's kind of hard when you just see this faint little outline of a star in the background. But, yeah, what did it say about relationships? Oh, yeah, that, we as a species are certainly a social species, so definitely the idea of friendship is very much important to our own mental health. But you don't need to have a partners to consider yourself a valid person. Your validity is based solely on your own personal merit, I'd like to think. But, then again, I'm not an expert on it. I'm just a person who spouts all sorts of weird and random stuff. Yeah, I can definitely understand Core's feeling of wanting to leave, because I grew up in a desert and now I live in kind of a tundra, so yeah, things have definitely changed for me. Although I should suppose I should visit home at some point or another. Maybe. Probably. When I have the money. Unfortunately, that always seems to be the biggest sort of issue on, a person's options are the resources they have available, which, for many people, is not much. Oh, and I said, later I would take a look at the sign in front of the tunnel, and it says Possum Springs Station, so I guess this is a station of some sort. I just don't know where the trolleys and all that stuff go. It's obviously not something the game has to explain. not explaining everything is actually a good thing. When you start explaining everything, you get something like, the Star Wars prequels, and we don't want that. We really, really don't want that. Because when you start doing stuff, you get stuff like, the latest Star Wars Solo movie, which is just like, oh well. And yes, the more creepy town of Mulvey, which, if the various drifters have qualms about getting off at Possum Springs, and then the residents of Possum Springs have qualms about going to Mulvey, it makes me wonder how much of a hellscape that place must be. If they made a sequel to Night in the Woods, I'd almost want it to take place in some place like Mulvey, And yeah, overall, I think I've said this before a few times. I don't think the game needs a sequel. If they made one, I would certainly play the heck out of it, but I just think that despite the story of May, Greg, Angus, and B aren't really finished by the end of the game, it's kind of left extremely open-ended, but I think the story, as far as we're concerned, is over, which is a not a terrible thing. And yeah, poor Bruce. I know he's saying that, he's going home and all of that, but I don't really see this as being something he's being completely honest with. Especially considering he's saying stuff like, oh yeah, they'll be here to meet me. It's like, well, how? They'd have to get in contact with you in order for them to, meet up with you at the station and all of that. So I kind of figured that Bruce is either, continuing to go on his, vagabond walkabout, or what he's describing is somewhat of an idea of an afterlife that, he's planning on this or sometime really soon to be somewhat of an end, which is certainly sad. I'm hoping that, he isn't lying, but can't help but feel that, there's a little bit of, fibbing. And unfortunately, we have Pastor Kate having a relatively bad day. Actually, it wouldn't be relatively bad. It's an extremely bad day. She's got the Possum Springs Chamber of Commerce trying to prevent her from, doing her job, which is to help the people. And then, well, that's, I guess, her second job. And then her primary job as a pastor gets questioned by May, as, she's got her own mental crap going on. But yeah, it is kind of, nice that they give Kate a very sympathetic role, even though she's typically someone in this variety of game that would be considered a kind of an antagonistic. I mean, we have a main character who is a millennial, pansexual girl who, rebels against society and stuff like that. So you would think that she also doesn't go to church at all, and, she doesn't feel disfulfilled by it. But yeah, in this kind of game, Kate would generally be considered one of the antagonists, but yeah, she is considered pretty much, relatively benign. Despite May's, antagonistic with law enforcement, her relationship with Molly doesn't seem to be a classic hero versus villain thing either, nor does it even seem to be, a Les Miserables relationship between Jean Valjean and Javier, where, they're both protagonists in their own story and stuff like that, but, they just sort of, both are part of this existence. The only antagonist really is the death cult at the end, which kind of also helps it seem to come out of nowhere, but I'll talk about that later. I'm doing my best with the speech options to seem as non-antagonistic as possible, but as the game's kind of central theme goes, it doesn't matter how much you try to be a good person, sometimes you just can't be. It's impressive how in a game where speech choices are a big thing, and if you've played stuff like various modern RPGs and stuff like that have a whole bunch of speech options, and you can be like, how does Mass Effect do it, Paragon and Renegade, or Knights of the Old Republic, which is Jedi versus Sith, or Fallout between good and bad karma. There is never you do this option to be a good person, and you do this option to be a bad person. And this one, May is not a good person. She's not evil, she's not, terrible or anything like that, but, I think she's got, various problems with impulse control, and she's demanding more from people than maybe they've got resources to deal with, and she just doesn't think, which is makes her more frustrating than she is terrible. Because, like I said last time or the time before, I don't exactly see her as being a sociopath, because she does seem to, regret her actions and stuff like that. She regrets her actions and not being, or she regrets her actions and she doesn't regret being caught, which is sort of the big divide between, sociopathy and, being careless. The game kind of pretty much makes it that no matter what, you can't make her better, which I guess actually is kind of a good theme. A lot of us, we have, friends or loved ones that we want to, help be better, but you can't make them be better. Because you can't, really can't make someone do stuff without, being the most, like, terrible and intrusive person ever. Yeah, this game, you're given more control over May than what most people would have with another person at all, ever. And yet you cannot help her become a better person. And yeah, here's sort of the exchange between Lori and May. And yeah, if you stand there at a subway platform, there is this sort of like almost primal sense of changing things, even for the complete worst. But I would say it's not that which makes you terrible, it's the humanity that tells you, no, that's a horrible thing, you shouldn't do that. Which is the good thing about being, human, or however they would pronounce it in Night in the Woods. Because, at least according to the makers of the game, that these people are all animal people. Although they've, never referred to anyone else as such. I wonder if that's considered just exceptionally rude. But yeah, May with all sorts of warnings. But yeah, you've got, Lori being like, we don't have serial killers, and May sitting here thinking, oh god, do we have serial killers? Because, yeah. And yeah, if you've noticed in the periphery, you've got, the various sorts of rats starting to populate Possum Springs, because we kind of fed them and made them multiply and take over the town, because that does seem to be sort of a kind of thing that May would do. She wants to be a good person, she wants to help people, but she might unfortunately be helping the wrong sorts of people, like, a small family of rats who are starting to, multiply and take over. Obviously, I think it would take longer than a single fortnight for, 2 rats to take over the entire place, but I'm guessing that that's more, rats being told that, hey, there's food over here. And yeah, poor Angus, definitely not having a good day, and unfortunately we're going to be making it completely and totally worse. But that's what we do in this game, unfortunately. That is indeed spooky. And Yep, the door is really nice because you get to, you know, check out the newspaper guy relatively quickly, and obviously get access to the roofs that much faster. And here we get, yeah, the random alpaca person. At least I'm guessing alpaca. Could be a sheep, could be a llama. Nah, llamas have longer ears, and sheeps have less pointy ears, so yep, you're definitely an alpaca. Maybe a goat. Oh, goats have horns. I guess they don't have to. But yeah, cartography is definitely a, you know, hobby a lot of people seem to really enjoy. I mean, I've done some, but typically that's just making up, you know, maps for role-playing games and stuff like that, so I don't think that's, you know, real cartography. That's just making crap up as you go along. But yeah, as far as you know, May doing terrible things, I guess this would be something that May does as a good thing. You know, she seems to get people to, you know, get closer and all that stuff. Yeah, and at this point I'm just wondering if there's a way to scare away all the birds, but no, some birds you can't scare away at all, and then the ones you do just come back. I've actually kind of begun to notice that mace seems to be a running sort of theme in this game. It seems like just about everyone is packing pepper spray or something of that sort. You know, Germ is, May killed a bird with it. You know, the saxophone player is carrying mace. And here we get, you know, the yeah, interaction between May, Germ, and Angel as, you know, May tries to discover the whereabouts of Casey that, you know, he always did say that he was just going to, you know, get on a train and, you know, continue onwards, but, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of one of those things. Yeah, you've been all around the world. Have you seen somebody? It's like, yeah, I've seen a lot of somebodies. But hey, Angel at least seems to be a, you know, very strict stand-up person. Yeah, Germ always seems to state some of the most ominous things before being like, well, I'm off. I wonder if he's cognizant of that and he's just, you know, into making people have that kind of discomfort before being like, and now I get to leave you feeling like this. Mwahaha. But nowhere else in town to go, save for, meeting up with the Millers. Yeah, see, when they start talking, they both seem to actually have good times, but yeah. And yep, since it's after Halloween, the spooky snacks has become seasonal snacks. So we've seen, 3 poster changes from back to school snacks to spooky snacks to seasonal. That's a lot of sign changing for like 2 weeks. And yeah, chips in slushy would probably be a little bit iffy. Yeah, I'd imagine having a giant leaking robot in the middle of your living room would probably not be the best thing. So can totally see why Angus isn't particularly happy. But yeah, can also see that Angus was just hoping for a quiet night with Greg, or heading somewhere else with just Greg, and here's May just sliding in, being like, hey, I'm part of the group now. Because, yeah, she seems to miss a whole lot of social cues. A whole lot of social cues. Like, all the social cues. But I guess that's part of being a video game protagonist. Yeah. You all stay here. And then they immediately get out. Yep, it certainly destroys the rims of the, uh, wheel. Oh. Yeah, I can totally understand Angus's frustration. I mean, this is definitely a not great thing to be put in. But yeah, it seems like they're having a not particularly great conversation. Yeah, May does seem to have a wandering mind at times. Yeah, Yeah. It's the problem with May. She's a bit too spastic and all that kind of stuff. Um, that poor, poor person. Apparently, apparently eternity sauce is something that is very terrible, and it does terrible, terrible things to people, but they keep pushing it on everybody. Yeah, I'll admit I'm one of those people that feels weird, one, announcing my need to use the restroom, and two, other people announcing their need to use the restroom. It's something to me that feels a little strange. Um, so yeah, we get May's big sort of desire to be destructive, which is generally not a good thing for, the place or the workers or anything like that, but I can understand May's desire to be destructive because she feels like she has no real control over her life, and, this is one thing that she can actually, do. Yeah, I didn't know that you could actually change the direction of your claws, so yeah, I decided to go for a little design here, which is kind of fun. Even though, wow, when you're not the person in charge, the nails on a chalkboard sound that makes is really grating. And yeah, here May goes with more and more petty, vandalism. The more important question. And then I don't want to know what happened there. I would think that, May would tell him that there was something going wrong. And I guess in the bathroom there's a, pentagram or something like that, is what's written down in the journal. I always thought it was supposed to be the donut that you had to eat in here. And yeah, here's some great, sort of blocking symbolism that we see here. We see May kind of sandwiching herself in between Greg and Angus, you know, creating a divide and all that stuff. So yeah, the way the game sort of, you know, portrays stuff is all very good. And yes, remember, always try to feed your Angus, although he's typically got more range here. Yeah, I could totally understand Greg being the kind of person that eats with his mouth full frequently. And, yeah, trying to make sure everyone gets their donuts. Because May does seem to overindulge herself. And now me trying to figure out where all of the donuts should go. And the screen starts getting all, you know, wobbly and wobbly, which is kind of good. Just to indicate stuff. Yeah, it is kind of your fault. This unfortunately is all of your fault, May. And now May rides the chariot. Which makes me wonder what's in that sugar. Probably not good. It was indeed. I guess it's good that we didn't see that. Although, you know, we do know Night in the Woods includes a puking animation sprite for May, so I guess they could have if they really wanted to. But we'll just be glad they didn't. Sheep are indeed nice and cool. And sheep are indeed dumb. Yep. Terrible, terrible things happened. yeah, the obvious response is your tattoo, which does bring things full circle, but then we get to hear more about uh, Greg having to deal with you know physical abuse and stuff like that, which that seems to be a running theme with both you know Greg and Angus. At least it doesn't seem that May's dad Stan ever got physical, but apparently he was a very berative drunk, which is good that he's stopped drinking. And hey, at least both of them have at least full-time jobs, which, seems to be difficult, at least in my section of the, New England type area. Yeah, those two do have an incredibly destructive streak. But yeah, it's good to leave your mark on the world, at least somewhat. And it's nice that at least they start, including Angus in these things. And luckily, the quote unquote crime is just littering, I guess. I mean, technically it is. It's leaving trash out in the middle of the woods, but. Um, See, it's nice when Angus gets involved. He's a good bear. Goodbye indeed. I always thought the eyes glowed. Maybe it did before, but yeah, it is certainly a little bit creepy. Legends indeed. And not of the Hidden Temple variety. Yeah, communication is important. Seems to be one of the central themes of the game. Yeah, that's essentially the big part of May's existence is the ever-growing feeling of helplessness. Because life is terrible like that. Oh. I do like how May's eyes linger on her dad for, you know, until the people on the screen start talking. It's kind of a nice touch. And I do like how this kind of setup goes, where you see the screen sort of overlaid on the characters. It's the last time we'll see it, but wonder if they were smart enough to make this the inverse of what the TV was in the first room. I mean, if not, it doesn't much matter. Yeah, for some reason, they love making that show be so terribly, terribly prophetic to the rest of the game, which is good. It's good to have comedy, be started before terrible things happen. That's why, in Jaws, you have a joke before the first time you actually see the shark, and then a joke immediately afterwards. What's sad is that's the thing that's sort of kind of happening. The whole postal service thing. We live in terrible times, my friends. But that's another day at night in the woods. When we come back, day 12 out of 14. Nearly there.